Hey guys, Laura here with STP, and this is the season for visiting colleges, applying to colleges. So I know most of the time I make videos on SAT prep, but today I have a very special video for you guys and a very special guest. So Ashley McNaughton is joining us today. Just to give you a little background on Ashley, she is the founder of ACM College Consulting, and she's an educational consultant with more than 10 years experience. So she has a degree in business management from Bucknell University. She has a college counseling certificate from UCLA, and she's worked with students all over the world, helping them with their college applications, their essays, their extracurricular activities, everything they need to do to strengthen their application to increase their chances of getting into even the most elite colleges. So I'm so excited to have Ashley on this channel today. She has so much information to share with us. Ashley, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you. Now, before we get started, I'm just curious with the audience that we have, like, what schools are you guys applying to? What schools are you visiting this summer? Comment below and let Ashley and I know. We would love to hear what's on your radar and where you're at in the college application process. This video is great for rising seniors, but if you're a rising junior or rising sophomore, Ashley's going to have information that's going to be super valuable for you guys too, because it's really good to plan ahead, as I'm sure Ashley can agree, and start thinking about your college applications well in advance of when you need to apply. All right, Ashley, I've got some questions for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Okay. We should definitely start with, score stuff. Obviously, I'm a test prep channel. A lot of students come here about SAT prep. So I wanted to talk to you about score choice versus sending all scores, because that's kind of a big thing for this admission cycle. So can you just explain to students the difference between schools that are score choice versus schools that want you to send all scores? And can you give us a rundown of some of the schools that do want you to send all scores?
So I actually only know of one school right now, which is Georgetown, that requires all test scores. I'm hoping they change that soon, but they seem to not want to budge on that. But in general, I tell students, do not be afraid to share all scores, because nearly everyone super scores, which means taking the highest math with your highest English, regardless of which date the test was taken. And I've heard counselors from all over top schools saying they want to take the best version of the student that's applying. So yes, they will see your lower scores, but they're only going to take into consideration the highest score in each subject.
Right. That's also what I say. So we definitely mirror each other there. Sometimes I have like a student who will come to me and they had a 600 on math, and then we work on math for, a few months, and they get that up to 750 to super score, but they're always scared that the schools are going to see that 600 and it's going to count against them. So Ashley, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I say send them both. Do not be afraid. They want to see the best version of you. They know that kids have good days and bad days. The math is harder sometimes on some tests than it is on others. They understand all of that, and they will truly take your highest scores submitted.
Okay, awesome. Here's one thing I would say to all of you guys. Georgetown's definitely the big one. So if you want to apply to Georgetown, keep that in mind. They want you to send all scores, but Google schools that want to send in all scores. There's like a short list that you can check out. So there's some other ones on there. I think actually I even saw Carnegie Mellon on there recently. I don't know if that's a new thing or what, but it's always changing. So I think it's going to be important for you guys to just check and make sure the schools, what schools are on there, what schools aren't.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
One thing I was going to say is a great website also to check is fairtest.org, which also really keeps track of which schools are test optional, which schools require test scores, etc. They usually have very up-to-date information. And of course,
that's awesome.
the college's websites themselves.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I like the fairtest.org though, because then everything's in one place and you don't have to like search every individual school. So that's a really good tip. Guys, I'm about to ask Ashley some other questions and other topics, and then realized after we filmed the video, I did not touch on test optional with Ashley, which is still an important part of the college admissions. And I think a lot of people aren't really sure if they should withhold or if they should submit scores to test optional schools. Now, Ashley and I talked about this after the video, and she and I are on the same page. All the data shows that students who submit scores have a way higher chance of getting admitted into schools than students who do not. So I've seen some data that shows that students are as much as 2 times as likely to get admitted to some of the more selective schools. So please work on the SAT or the ACT, because it really is an important piece of college admissions. And as you can see from the trends, schools are going back to test required. Harvard and Stanford, most notably, were 2 recent schools to announce that they're going back to test required. So there's an issue right now with GPA inflation. Like 80% of students across the country have an A average. And so colleges need more data to inform them when they make their decisions, and test scores are a really good way to be able to tell if a student is college ready, and also to be able to compare students from different parts of the nation. Let's talk early action and early decision. So most students that call me now, Ashley, they want to apply early because they feel like it increases their odds. Someone had mentioned to me recently, though, that they've analyzed some data about early action, which for those of you out there that are watching that don't know, early action is the one that's not legally binding. So you apply early, but you don't have to go there if you get in. Early decision is the one that's legally binding, where you do have to commit if you get in. And so this person actually was telling me that so many students are applying early action now that it's really not increasing your odds that much versus regular decision to apply early action. Is that true?
Yes. So there is sometimes a very slight advantage to applying early action, but not really. The biggest advantages you will really see is with early decision. It all has to do with yield. You know, yield is basically, in college terms, the percentage of students that they accept that will end up enrolling there. So they have a certain number of students that they want to have, and they know that if they accept them via early decision, they will be going there. So obviously they would prefer to take those students over the students who are applying early action. Just some stats for you. For example, last year, or this past application year, Brown accepted over 50% of their students for the year through early decision.
Wow.
And the advantage of applying ED, so their ED acceptance rate was 14%, and their regular decision acceptance rate was 4%. So
wow,
that's more than 3 times a higher chance of getting accepted.
Now, so this actually wasn't a question that I had planned for you, not to segue too much, but now I'm trying to think like a parent, and here would be my next concern. Well, okay, Ashley, what if I apply early decision and then I get in, but they give me a terrible financial package? Like, now I'm bound to go there. Is there any wiggle room for negotiation if you're an early decision student when it comes to the financial piece?
So really, it is a binding decision. And I always emphasize that you should not be applying early decision unless you're 100% set on going to that school, also regardless of the costs, because you can usually get a pretty good idea of how much financial aid you're going to get before you apply. You can do their net price calculators. You can look at past statistics from students accepted there. So there is a little bit of wiggle room if it's like a significant difference than what you expected to get from them and you truly can't afford it, then there is a way out. But usually you should know beforehand.
Now, you brought up something that I'm not familiar with. You said the net calculator. Where do you find that to be able to kind of estimate the costs?
So every school should have one on their website. Sometimes it's difficult to find. But if you Google net price calculator and the name of the college, it will take you to their website. And basically, every school uses different calculation, but sometimes they're the same. But the main idea is that you're going to put in your income, your statistics, and it's going to tell you, based on that information, here's the estimated amount that we expect to give you, or we expect you to pay.
That's really awesome. I love that. Do you know if like the algorithm is based off of past student packages? Do you have any idea how they do this, or?
So there are several different methodologies used. A lot of them use a format based on the federal calculations that are used for the FAFSA.
Oh,
right. So they're basically using those standard calculations to come up with how much you would get through that.
Okay.
But then a lot of times they will also take into consideration the kind of scholarships that they have and how much financially they typically give kids.
Let's talk essays. So everybody wants to know this. I'm sure you get this question all the time. How can a student make their personal statement stand out?
I wish I had one answer for this. I think the main thing that students often forget about is it's not like they don't want you to be someone that you think they want you to be. They want you to be you. So like they always say, if you ask them what they want, they say, we just want to learn more about you. They want to hear what you want to share about yourself. So sometimes it's an important story about your family history, where you came from, how you grew up. Sometimes it's about some huge event that had a meaningful impact on your life. At the end, it is really about being true to yourself and sharing something that's not already there. Like they already know you have good grades. They already see your list of activities. Tell them something else.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to push back on you, right? Because there are certain things that I hear that students want to avoid talking about because they're too cliche, right? So yes. What if I'm a student and I'm like, oh, Ashley, like a huge thing for me was when I got injured playing soccer, right? Is that something that is like overly done, or are there certain topics you want to avoid?
Yes. So if you told me that, I would think immediately, oh no, please, another one of those. So another one we get a lot is like, that time my sports team won the championship, or my family had to move and it was really hard. You know, like those kind of topics are overdone. However, it depends on how you tell it. So maybe that's the best story you have, and that was very significant in your life. Then tell it, but tell it in a way that's not the way every other kid could tell it. Tell it in a way that the story could only come from you. Oh,
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. So that being said, that might be tough for students to do. You know I love math, right? Because you do the problem, the answer is right. Writing a paper for me is a lot harder because there's more creativity. So is that something that you help students with? Do you help them craft a narrative and an essay that's like really effective? And how do you go about doing that?
So one of the first major steps is coming up with the topic. So if they had told me they wanted to write about something like what you just said, a topic that's somewhat overdone, I would try to get them to come up with something else. I do a lot of really great, fun brainstorming exercises to try to help them think of topics that maybe they hadn't thought of before. And once we narrow it down to that one topic, we will work together to talk about a structure. They will write the essay and we will go back and forth. They share their drafts with me. I make suggestions for how to best organize the content and edit suggestions until we finally have that final draft that we are both happy with.
That's awesome. Yeah. So if any of you are interested in working with Ashley on essays, and she has an array of services aside from essays, you definitely want to check out her website. So I'm going to link it up here right now. Up here. Up here. I don't know. I can't remember where it is. But anyways, go to ACM Consulting. You can check her out. I'm trying to think if I had other questions on essays. I do actually. I feel like all these top tier schools, they've got the supplementals, right? Where they want to know why you want to come to their school specifically, or what programs you're interested in at their school, which involves a lot of research. What do you think, Ashley, is more important at the end of the day? Should they focus more on the supplementals or the personal statement? Like, how would you order the ranking and importance of those two vastly different types of college essays?
Honestly, I would say they were equally important. What I would say is the personal statement will be used for way more schools. So you definitely want to invest a lot of time on that. But if you have a top choice school that has a lot of supplementals, then in that case, I would say they are a little bit more important. Some advice that I have for writing the supplementals is really like, a lot of times, yes, we say do research before you write those answers, but a lot of times kids make the mistake of putting facts and figures and rankings that they read online about the school in these supplemental essays. And they don't want to hear information that they already published about themselves. They want to hear more about like why you, why them, why you fit together. They don't need to know those things.
Right. Okay. That's a really good tip. Okay. Awesome. All right. Let's move on to extracurricular activities. So how important, Ashley, do you think extracurricular activities are in the college application?
So the NACAC does a survey of college admissions professionals from hundreds of universities all over the US, and they publish the data from that. And in this survey, they ask the colleges to rank the importance of the different admissions factors that they're taking into consideration. And number one is the grades. Number two is the rigor that you got these grades in. And then way further down the list is extracurricular activities. So not saying that they're not important, but they definitely come in under grades, test scores, essays. That being said, imagine that you're being compared apples to apples to another student who applied to the same school, and they all have 4.0s and they all have test scores. This is your case. This is your time to differentiate yourself from those other students. So they are still important.
Yeah. And I know that you had shared with me that that's something that you also work on with your students, is helping them shape their extracurricular resume. Can you speak more about that?
Yes. So I love starting to work with students when they're younger, because we have time to kind of shape their resume before they're applying. So when I have the chance and I work with students in 10th or 11th grade, we start out with looking at their resume. What have they done so far? What do they really enjoy doing? And then we kind of talk about what could be missing. Where are some opportunities for improvement, or where could you be more involved in the activities that you already do? I always tell them, don't add more activities to your resume just so that you have it full, or so that you can fill out all 10 spaces on the Common App. I think it's more important about the quality of the activities that you're doing. So you want to show that you're not just a member of the team, like you're an active member of the team. You're contributing to the activities that you're doing. Right. So when I'm looking at the list with the students, we'll really talk about all the different opportunities that there are and talk about what's important to them. What do they want colleges to know that's important to them? And also, where are the opportunities for them to improve their resume, but also gain something themselves? So students taking internships or doing job shadows or things like that, it's not always about building the resume. It's about getting that experience for themselves to maybe help them figure out what they want to major in or what future career goals they have.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I love the quality over quantity thing. That makes so much sense to me. I feel like the hot words a few years back, like, I don't know if you read Jeffrey Salingo's book, Who Gets In and Why, but that was like a big one back in 2021. It was all about having a hook, right? Like, is that still a thing where students need to have a hook where they're like super passionate about something and they really go hard with it?
So I think that it definitely helps if you do, but it's not a must. I mean, not every student has this amazing thing, and you sometimes can't just go out and create one, you know?
Yeah.
I think that maybe it's not necessarily a hook, but maybe you just have a serious interest in something or a passion for something that really shines through your resume, and they can see that, and that's special.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's talk recommendation letters. So, you know, they have to have a couple counselors write recommendation letters, right? Or one counselor, I think.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
Well, so usually it's their counselor and then one or two teachers, depending on the college.
So here's a common issue that I hear students having. They'll say, I go to this big school. My counselor doesn't even know who I am. So do you have any advice or recommendations for that student?
So I always have students print out their resume and take it to the people that they are asking to write the recommendation letters. So that I think it's not really that polite to just add their contact information into the Common App and have them invited through the program before you even spoke to them about it. And B, I think this is an opportunity to give them information about yourself. Also give them your list of schools that you're applying to, so they kind of have an idea of like what your goals are. And by giving them this information, you're also giving them more details to infuse into their letters. So the schools aren't receiving the standard recommendation letter that they often do.
Yeah, you can tell if a letter is generic, and that's not going to knock their socks off.
It's awful.
I like that. So print out your resumes, guys. That's really smart. Now, I've heard in the past that a strategy when it comes to choosing what teachers to ask is to either choose a teacher where you really excelled in the class, or better yet, choose a teacher where you faced an adversity and struggled but overcame it in the class and worked really hard. So what's your take on that?
I think those are great ideas. I think any teacher that you really had an extraordinary relationship with, you know, somebody who you feel like knows you beyond the basic, you know, somebody that you feel like if you ask them right now to write your letter, they would have some interesting things to say about you. And yes, those are great strategies to use.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, another thing that I've heard is students should ask for a letter of recommendation before the summer. So at the end of their junior year, because if you wait till senior year, so many people are asking and then the teachers are overloaded. Is that also true?
So I do have my students like towards middle, end of junior year, really think about who they want to ask. And if they are still in good touch with the student, with the teacher before summer, it is a great time to ask them. However, a lot of schools have a process in place now to kind of like avoid this confusion. So a lot of high schools will say, okay, you're requesting your letters through this form that the counselor will give to the teachers at the beginning of senior year. So for schools like that, they're not going to write it anyway early.
Right.
Most likely you won't have it until the fall anyway. So I think as long as you ask, you know, right away when school starts, give them time.
Okay, that sounds good. Let's talk campus visits. So when it comes down to campus visits, because a lot of students are doing that this summer, like that's a huge part of summertime before senior year. Do you have any advice for students who are visiting as far as anything that they should in particular do on the campus visit, or anything that they should ask?
So I am a huge fan of campus visits. I think that they are very important in the decision process. It makes me really sad when a student makes a choice based on what they've read online or what their parents told them. I think that number one, like you just said, a lot of students are doing these tours during summer break, but really that's the worst time to do it because there's no one there. You're not getting the student vibe, like how is the atmosphere on campus? What's going on in the classrooms? Those kinds of things. So really, I recommend doing the tours during the academic semester if possible. Absolutely attend the information sessions, do the official tours. number one, you get a lot of great information. And number two, a lot of times the schools are recording like your data, you were there. So if the school is taking demonstrated interest into consideration in their admissions decision, you want them to know that you were there. You made the effort to travel there.
Right. Do you find that most schools do consider demonstrated interest?
A lot of schools do. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah.
And then as far as important questions to ask, I think besides the basic admissions questions that will get answered during the information session anyway, I think it's really important to consider like, what are the class sizes? How hard is it to register for classes? I just had a tour guide tell me at one of the schools that he didn't know that the last day of orientation, whichever orientation session you signed up for, that was when you got to register for courses. So he chose the last one because he wanted to have more summer, which means he had the last registration day and didn't get any of the classes that he wanted.
Wow.
So these are the kind of things that you can find out, during these tours and question sessions.
Ashley, not to interject, but what blows my mind is how they were all closed during COVID. Like, isn't that so crazy to think those poor students that were trying to apply during the pandemic couldn't even visit? Yeah. That was just so I'm just so happy that we're back to normal where students can make like an informed decision. Because I won't name what school this was, but I remember visiting a school when I was in high school. And I mean, it's a very good school, but I got to the campus and it was during the academic year. I think that's a great tip that you should go during the academic year. And Ashley, I was observing all the students walking around campus and they had these huge backpacks on that looked like a burden to them. And they looked so miserable, like they looked stressed out. Nobody was smiling. And I was like, this is not the school for me. And I didn't apply. So it is really important to go and to feel the vibe and to, try to envision yourself fitting there. One other tip that I heard from someone was to try to talk to some students. Like, I'm not really sure how you could go about that. I know sometimes people even get an overnight somehow with students. Do you have any like suggestions for like how you can pull a student or two aside? And if you think that that's valuable to talk to some students that are currently enrolled there?
Absolutely. I think tour guides are usually current students and they are amazing and they can answer a lot of your questions, but at the same time, like they're paid to represent the university. So I think it's good to get other opinions. A lot of times I recommend, eating in the cafeteria. That alone, you will see so many students and you'll find that most of them are pretty outgoing. So just stop and ask questions, go to the library or go to the student activity center, go to the fitness center. Like there are so many places that you can find students to ask questions.
Awesome. Love that. The only other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, this has been so helpful, by the way. Thank you so much for doing this. And if you guys feel the same way, please, hit the like button because I mean, this is like such amazing information that Ashley's just offering to you. So I hope that you really see the value in this because I certainly do. Let's talk about deferrals and wait lists. No student actually wants to get the letter that says, I'm sorry, but you've been deferred or you're on the wait list, but it does happen, right? So when a student is deferred or placed on the wait list, what kind of, guidance do you provide for those students?
So number one, follow the instructions. Some people have problems with that. Whatever the college tells you they want you to do when they send you that decision, you need to listen to them. So a lot of times it involves sending a confirmation. Yes, I do want to be waitlisted, or yes, I do want to be considered further. A lot of times they ask you to send updated grades. Make sure your counselor is sending those in. The other thing to think about is if they did not specifically say they do not want any more information and they won't take it into consideration, then here is your chance to continue demonstrating interest. So a lot of times my students will work with me on a letter of continued interest. So we'll talk about, what has changed since they applied. why are they still really interested and why are they a good fit for that school? Just a short little statement to send to the colleges. And also what you have to think about is if you don't send anything, and you could have, when they go to reconsider your application again, maybe not until March, they haven't seen it or heard from you in possibly 4 or 5 months. While they've heard from the other students who applied RD, they've heard more updates from them. So like, this is your chance to kind of remind them, hey, I'm still here. Definitely take advantage of it.
So who do you remind? Like, is it like a certain admissions officer that you target, or how do you find out who to stay in contact with?
So usually, you have a local admissions rep that's in charge of your region. That I would hope that you were already in contact with them before this point, but if you weren't, now is a great time to reach out and use that contact. If you don't have one and you send it to their general admissions email, it will be put into your file.
Okay. I know of a student recently who was waitlisted at Cornell and gotten off the wait list because it was their top choice and they were super happy. Is that a rare event? I mean, how often do students get off the wait list, and has it happened with any of your students that you've worked with?
So it is very rare. I usually prepare students, if you've been waitlisted, like definitely start focusing on other schools so you don't get your hopes up. This year was a rare exception. A lot of schools have started pulling people from the wait list because of the financial aid fiasco with the FAFSA.
Right.
Since they weren't able.
I'm so sorry. Can you, for those people watching, they might not know what you're talking about. Just like, can you provide like a brief summary of what happened with FAFSA?
Well, I still don't know. No, so the FAFSA is typically live on October 1st, as is the CSS profile, the two main financial aid forms that you are using to apply for financial aid. They redid their format and changed their questions, and it was supposed to go live December 1st. So, of course, the colleges knew, okay, our financial aid review process may be delayed a little bit, but it wasn't ready in December. There were so many flaws, so many glitches in the system. Some people until May weren't even able to complete it properly. So colleges weren't able to get the financial aid awards out in time for the students to make a decision on which school they were attending. So because of this, a lot of students that may have wanted to go to a certain school didn't accept their offer there because they were afraid it would be too expensive. So then they had to pull students from the wait list.
Interesting. I didn't even realize the connection with that, but that makes so much sense. Wow. But, just to clarify, the FAFSA is ironed out and it's working properly now.
Well, they say that.
Okay.
I don't think that all of the glitches are 100% out, but they are promising that they will have it back in action for next year on October 1st, like it should be. I really hope that is true.
I know, me too, because that's stressful, and
it's very stressful.
Yes, and students need to know so that because college is expensive. I mean,
yeah.
I have an aneurysm just thinking about how much it costs these days. So
it's insane.
So I guess, Ashley, I want to thank you again for joining. This has been so informative, guys. I'm going to put Ashley's link to her website in our description. Definitely go check her out. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet and hit the notification bell. And until next time, guys, happy prepping.